have been accused in my very own comment sections that I am promoting socialist propaganda. There was at least one individual that was disappointed with me because I have told people that were unaware that socialist propaganda exists in the world, and they have watched it, and because of me they're now probably mind controlled by the chains of socialism. I will tell you something, I don't care. Okay, if I see something that's good and something that's worthwhile, I will tell other people about it. I think people are grown-ass adults and are capable of watching something and make up their own conclusions. I do not believe in that information should be restricted or you should spoon-feed people with information. If something is nice, I will recommend it. There are a lot of communist propaganda songs that I like listening to, so I don't see the problem with it. But most importantly, I do not think it's socialist propaganda. The only reason I said that it's a criticism to capitalism is because this is what the author has said it. And maybe he either failed in accurately criticizing capitalism, or maybe he said it so that progressive outlets can recommend his movie. But the more I think about it, the more I realize that this movie does not criticize capitalism at all. Like, there is absolutely nothing in it that even represents capitalism. So let's talk a little bit about the premise again. There is this prison where you have people set on different levels, and then there is food coming from the first levels all the way to the lower levels. The people on the top, they eat as much as they want. The people in the middle get the pickings from the people on the top, and then as the food reaches all the way down, there is almost nothing until you get cannibalism and people starving at the bottom. So the idea is that if people were to ration correctly, that if people would only take their fair share, then the food would reach the lower levels. And this is just the surface analysis. When you look into it, you realize that this is not a capitalist system, and it's also not a democratic system. Because in a capitalist system, at least the people at the bottom, they still have money. They still have a ways to punish the ones on the top. Like, for example, Netflix lost $9 billion because people decided to boycott them. So the people at the bottom do have some limited power against the people on the top. And secondly, this is not a free market. It's a central planned economy. The people running things, the administration, they're the ones deciding how much food they're going to put on the table. They're going to be the ones deciding how the entire system is being ran. It's their rules that create the system, which means that the system is not democratic. People cannot leave it. Okay, it's a closed border system if you want. And the people have absolutely no say into how things are run. It's more akin to a socialist system where the inner party gets to decide who gets stuff than it has anything to do with a capitalist country. It's more to do with trickle-down welfare, if you want, than it has to do with the way resources are distributed in a capitalist system. I mean, if you look at capitalist systems, one of the biggest complaints is that there's a lot of food being thrown away. There's a lot of waste. So let's look at the characters a little bit. I find it very interesting, the second cellmate that the main character gets, which is a woman that used to work at the company. And she is an ideologue. She's got a perfect idea on society, and she wants to get into this prison in order to help the inmates along with the experiment of causing sudden solidarity. You can tell that she's an ideologue based on the type of item that she wants to bring with her in herself. She wants to bring a dog. In this situation, the dog is a detriment. It's a handicap. You would be better off not bringing anything than to bring a dog, because the dog also requires food. So now she has to share the food with that dog. And if you think about it, if you end up on a low level with a canine and you don't feed the canine, well, then the canine becomes aggressive. It can attack you when you sleep. So the dog is really a symbol of just how idealistic and what a distorted vision of the world this ideologue has. She's a moral busybody. She lectures the people down in order to start rationing and tries her best in order to impose her ways. And you would think that, okay, well, this is a positive character, right? Like this is the character that can bring change to the world. If all of the people would think like her, then things would be better, right? The problem is that her ideology is flawed. She doesn't know how many levels they are. She says that if only people would share, there would be food going down to everyone. But we find out that there are more than 200 levels, like she initially claims. There are 333 levels, which means that even if people were to share the food, even if people were to ration, there still wouldn't be enough food going down to the bottom levels. The system was flawed from the beginning. No ideology would have been able to change this system. And the moment she realizes this, when she notices that she has been placed on level 230 or whatever, showing that there are far more levels than she initially believed, she hangs herself. Because this is what happens when the ideologue comes into contact with reality, and it just completely destroys all of his political beliefs. And it shows beyond a shadow of a doubt that all of his moral system, everything that he lived up until then, was false. So that's what you can take from this. I don't see it as a criticism on capitalism. I do see it as a criticism on people who try to use violence and murder in order to change a system, and at the end of the day, nothing gets changed. But people still die. So, and this is another thing where you can point out at the main character, right? What book does he want to bring? He brings Don Quixote. If you read Don Quixote, it's about a guy with paranoia and delusions, a sick individual, which finds a book about knights, and he tries to become a knight. He tries to replicate being a knight. And people around him start taking advantage of him. He gives a child to a lustful farmer because the farmer promises he will take care of the child. He gives all of his belongings to a woman that he thinks is a fair lady, and she takes advantage of him. He does the bidding of two very nasty barons that use him, and eventually he fights against the windmills, right? He charges lance forward at a couple of windmills that he perceives to be as giants. This is who the main character is. He is an idealistic person. He doesn't understand how the world around him actually is. He tries to bring his ideals from the outside world into the prison, and that is why eventually he dies. And there's also a criticism about the sharing of information into all of these central planned dictatorial systems. I guess like what causes sudden solidarity, like what has the possibility of getting people to work together, is the appearance of a child. Alright, like all of those people hated each other. The people at the top hated the ones at the bottom. The ones at the bottom hated the ones at the top. But the thing that could unify them was the existence of a child in that place. Like children being abused is what gets people to be together and try to change the system. The problem is the sharing of information. You see, the ending of the movie is a little bit complicated. I don't think there was actually a child at the bottom of the prison. What I do think happened was that the main character got fatally wounded, and he started seeing stuff. He started visualizing stuff that wasn't there. So I think the child didn't exist. What I do think happened is that the panna cotta that the main character, the cookie that the main character wanted to send back, did actually get sent back. But the message was misinterpreted by the people at the top. The people at the top didn't think that the panna cotta was returned to them because everyone got food. They probably didn't even know where their food is going towards. What they saw, and this is from a flash forward of the movie, that the panna cotta had a string of hair. And they thought that the reason it was returned to them was because it had one string of hair and people didn't want to eat it. So it shows the lack of communication between the lower classes and the higher classes that live in their ivory tower. I don't think this movie is about capitalism, okay? And I don't think that this movie is propaganda. Propaganda is done with the intention that the person can only get one thing from that work of art. It removes the interpretation of the viewer from the work of art. This has so many interpretations, and I'm pretty sure a communist will view this as, some criticism towards capitalism. Some religious person might see it as a criticism towards secular nations without God. A news reporter might see this as fake news. It really depends on how you want to see it. But I personally do not see this as propaganda, and I don't see it as a criticism against capitalism. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys in the comment section.